All right, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thanks for tuning in. Today we've got 3 points of progress. We're going to discuss a little bit about project management and more so the battlefields. We've got a little bit of discussion on design and finally some play testing. Just a reminder, the end of January 2022 dev blog is out on Reddit now. So first up, some project management. I've been using Jira for a while now for tracking the progress of JpnMana and a bunch of projects at work. But one of the interesting things that I did recently for JpnMana is including story points for tracking my progress essentially over the 2 weeks. And we have a nice, pretty sprint report. It burns down. So as I finish tasks, we get this nice, pretty graph. Fun fact, it looks like I do most of the work in the weekend, which is the gray section there in the middle. And then towards the end, the second weekend, I had completed some tasks. I completed all the tasks, and so I could actually do some extra tasks. So, yeah, it's a good sprint. I mean, good 2 weeks of work. Got more done than I expected, which is always nice. Next up, we got battlefields. So this is the design of one of the battlefields. So this is a mountain battlefield that we have in the works. So this was the design for that battlefield, and here it is in game. So now we have various battlefields. I think we implemented 3 so far in data, and they're loading from data files, and we can now load various battlefields, and so we have the first 3 implemented, and there'll be more to come soon. Next up, we have the city buffs. So we had to do a fair amount of design work in relation to 4 buildings that the player can build in their city, and 2 of the main ones are the temple and the shrine. So temples in Japan are Buddhist, and shrines in Japan are Shinto. Shintoism has 800 some odd gods, which you can see in the anime Spirited Away, but we wanted to incorporate some of these gods, or at least the major ones, into the Shinto shrine and correlate those themes of whichever god we're working with into the character buff or the player buffs that we would want that god to bestow on the heroes. So there's a lot of research work that goes into that. It went well. It takes time. It's a time-consuming task, but overall it went well. We came up with 18 different skills or buffs that those gods will be able to put on the player depending on the level of the shrine, and same is true for the Buddhist temple that's in. As far as design goes, these both still need to be implemented. But then from there, we went on to the first 8 heroes. So the player will begin in Okayama Prefecture and initially explore the Chugoku region. So that is part of West Japan. I think there's 5 prefectures that make up Chugoku area. But in each of those prefectures, we want the player to obtain additional heroes and build up their hero force, essentially. So we have to research which prefectures have which historical figures, and then which historical figures do we want to incorporate the game, and which ones have theoretically thematic interesting skills, so on and so forth. So that is what we did for the research behind both the city buildings that we have the player available to unlock and the heroes that the player will slowly accumulate as they explore the different prefectures of Japan. Okay, so now we're ready for a bit of playtesting. So we implemented quite a bit of battles, some of the initial battles, and I think we're looking right now at the second battle. So we can place some Momotaro and the monster in the battlefield and start battle. Bear in mind, this is the design tool. This is essentially our prototyping tool to help us balance the some aspects of the game. But one of the things that we noticed early on in this playtesting experience is that battle is a little bit too linear. There's not a whole lot of decisions. That becomes my turn. I have one of 2 options. This has a cooldown of 2. So I can't actually use this skill every turn. So after I use that skill, I only have one option, which is the Lucky Mallet attack. And yeah, long story short, battle doesn't feel strategic enough. It's something that we want to fix going forward. So that is where we're going to spend some time in the next 2 sprints probably. So most of February will be spent balancing those aspects of the game. And one of the things that is going well so far, if I start this guy up again, maybe I should make a reset button soon too. But one of the things that we really do like about this early phase is that we have this concept of the pre-battle screen. So in this phase, based on the difficulty that you choose for the battle, we have three stars of difficulty. This changes your unit budget, and that would change whether or not you can place a hero on a 5-unit square or 4-unit square. And then also battle points are used for purchasing some different buffs here. And we're really enjoying actually this aspect of the pre-battle screen. We feel that that's actually quite strategic in nature and really makes the player think a few things about where to place units, although some of these features are not yet implemented. That's feeling quite strong. The bigger issue is that, well, once battle begins, it's a little linear, it's a little simple, it's a little too straightforward. So the next 2 weeks here, 4 weeks here, we're going to spend some time to really balance this out and make battle more interesting. And we have a few different ideas that we'll probably talk about next time. But hopefully those changes will help make this battle more interesting and more enjoyable for the player and more fun. Fun fact, we spent ages during this past summer, so 6 months ago, designing and meticulously analyzing loads of equations for what rates should armor scale for the different classes, what rates should they do damage, should weapons play a role, should skill level play a role. I mean, just oodles and oodles of calculations on literally like an endless number of characteristics of battle. And man, I thought it was more than enough analysis and deep dive into the balancing of how these equations should scale. And we simulated battles with, these different linear equations and comparing and blah, blah, blah. And man, maybe the equations are right. Like, we don't have to throw out all that work. Certainly not. But at the same time, one thing that those equations do not capture is whether or not the game is fun. And currently, battle is not all that fun. So, man, you can analyze and assess and so on and so forth until you're blue in the face. But until you sit down and play the game, whether or not it's fun or not is just a whole nother story. So, all is not for naught. We are going to make some changes in the way that gameplay works, particularly in combat. The equations are still mostly valid. Hit points should still largely scale the way that it is. Armor should scale the way that it is, so on and so forth. So I think the scales and the rate of progression, so on and so forth, is more or less all right. But, man, the one thing that it does not capture is whether or not the game is fun. And, early on, the designer that I work with, him and I keep going back to this early quote that I had told him, which is like, the hardest thing in any game development experience is to make the game fun. And it's all right. We're not down and out. It just needs to be iterated upon. No one gets it right the first time, and we didn't either. So through some iteration, we'll get it right. We can improve it. Much like if you're familiar with Dwarven Fortress, the guy's been working on it for 20 years, and much in that same way, that's kind of our path. We want to build this game because we want to play this game. It doesn't have to be financially successful. It doesn't have to be any of those things. Like, we want this game to exist, and that's why we're building it, so that if nothing else, we can enjoy it ourselves. So, it's a passion project, and I'm thankful for that. It lets us just enjoy building and the experience of making it be what we want it to be. So it's coming along, and we'll iterate on the battle. And, over time, the game will just be better and better. And down that path of being better and better, it will become more fun. So that's it for playtest. All right, folks, that'll do it for this sprint and this progress report. We'll have another dev blog coming out in 2 weeks on January 15th, and shortly after a video recap. You can check us out on any of these channels. So we're on Reddit, where we post the dev blog, on Twitter and Facebook. We really appreciate any feedback, any kind of response that you guys can give us. It's nice to know that we're not just pushing things into the blog or into the void for no one to see. So if you can give me a like or a thumbs up or upvote, we really appreciate it. And coming soon, we will have the first podcast. So I interviewed a Dr. Ryan Spring from Tohoku University, who's a applied linguistics researcher. And so I will have a podcast episode coming out soon with the discussion that I had with him. So stay tuned for that. Thanks again, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Cheers.